This mission is called The Factory. In this mission, elements of the 112 Panzer Grenadier Battalion are being mustered to clear Syrian special forces and irregulars from a industrial district to the east of Aleppo. There's a large force of special forces here, and they also have access to ATGMs, according to the briefing. Luckily, one aspect of the briefing is that there were reconnaissance units in this area that have already spotted some locations of enemy forces. In this mission I have my sort of standard, about 3 platoons of Panzer Grenadiers, 2 platoons of Pioneers, and then a platoon and a half of tanks. They're also giving me an insane amount of fire support. 4 sections of Panzerhaubitze 2000s, and I think 4, maybe 5 sections of 120mm mortars. And it's a good thing that such firepower is being granted at my disposal, because this is a classical example of something that you would never want to attack, and you would go around. We have these gargantuan buildings that are going to be garrisoned by the best infantry that Syria has, and we're going to be unable to bring our vehicle fire support to bear because there's ATGMs on the rooftops, and the Syrians also, you know, they have the feared and the very dangerous RPG-29. Even with all the fire support, and even with the contact reports starting off, this is not an objective that I think is tactically sound to attack. It's surrounded by a fortified wall, and there's interlocking fields of fire from all of the buildings. Each objective, there's a number of places where enemy OPs can be sighted. The buildings themselves, if heavily garrisoned, are going to be nearly impossible to take. My plan is going to focus around securing the brown ceramics building in the center of the compounds, and that should provide good overwatch fires onto nearly all of the surrounding areas. I'm then going to push up 2 platoons on the left flank and sweep around to secure the rest of the factory area. I think an important aspect of planning for this operation is going to be an extensive preparatory bombardment. So I'm going to try to accomplish 2 things in my preparatory bombardment. Number 1 will be to kill any ATGM firing areas that I might suspect have ATGMs, and also with that to knock out any OPs that they might have. The second thing that I want the preparatory bombardment to accomplish is to destroy any of the contacts that have been reported by the reconnaissance. I'm going to lay down very liberal fires onto these contacts. My intent is to destroy them. The Panzerhaubitzes should be able to rip through buildings. I should be able to level about half of the town with the amount of firepower I have. I'm also going to be providing fires onto the buildings that are directly in front of the assembly area. This is my initial movement. My initial plan is to establish a base of fire directly in front of the assembly area, and then from there to move towards the surrounding building in the center.
Feueranforderungen empfangen. Ende.
Feueranforderung kommen.
Feueranforderung empfangen. Ende.
Oh, and I just want to apologize in advance for any sort of pauses that occurred during this mission because I kept getting interrupted and I had to take phone calls and whatnot. So there's several points where I paused the game, stopped the recording, and then it resumes.
Feueranforderung empfangen. Ende.
What I'm doing here is these buildings that I'm firing on now. I don't know if there's enemy there, but if there are enemy there, they'll be able to deliver effective fire onto my initial base of fire positions. So I'm simply suppressing them, not destroying them with 120 millimeter mortars. The company command elements are going to be in Overwatch. They're going to serve as secondary OPs. My primary OP is going to be established on this building here on the left, and it's going to be manned by the Forward Observer section. As soon as the mission starts, they're just going to rush up to the rooftop and get eyes on the whole scenario. About half of my force starts on the left flank, and this area is troublesome because there's a large forest blocking my view to the buildings on the side of the road, and accordingly I'm not going to be able to suppress them effectively. It is a somewhat solid position though for defending because my tanks will have hold down positions. I am worried about the large white building all the way on the left. That would be an ideal position for having a machine gun or an ATGM. Initial movements in this area are going to be to move to the apartments directly in front of the assembly area, assaulting them, and with support fires from the mortars, the tanks, and also a smoke screen being deployed by the mortars, which I haven't done yet, but I will do in a moment. I have to be careful about firing over these trees, though, or through these trees. It's possible that rounds could ricochet and injure or kill the teams that are maneuvering. So this smoke screen should provide soft cover and concealment during the platoon's initial advancement.
Feueranforderung kommen. Feueranforderung empfangen. Ende.
I'm also going to provide smoke directly on the road, the MSR there, using the mortars. Platoon's going to advance under cover of the smoke and assault the compounds. That should be our Overwatch on the left, and then Overwatch on the right and the center, as said before, is going to be in those buildings directly in front of the assembly area. Take note that right here I'm going to be quickly moving my forces behind the smoke screen, not running through it. At this point in the campaign, my forces are partially depleted. I've averaged about, between 2 and 4 casualties a mission. And honestly, I don't think that I'm gonna make it through this mission and still have a combat effective company at the end. No matter what, I'm gonna take heavy casualties in this mission. I know that for a fact, even given the fire support that I have. The simple matter is that those Syrian special forces are gonna hide and wait, and then when I get close, they're gonna knock something out with an RPG-29. And before I can suppress them or return effective fire, they're going to fire off other rounds and cause heavy casualties, and there's nothing I can do about it. Initially, I'm going to keep all of the vehicles in defilade, and this is because the assembly area is exposed and there could be ATGMs already sighted for that assembly area. So all of these vehicles I'm just going to put into cover. They're not going to be able to provide fire support because if I do so, they'll be engaged. They're only going to be able to come out after we secure the central ceramics building, and that's going to be sometime after the mission start. For the opening phase of this mission, it's likely that not much vehicle support will be available to my infantry, and it's mainly going to be a firefight and also a contest of who spots who first and who can call in artillery on who first. These Panzer Grenadiers are going to form into Overwatch on the right flank. They're going to be assaulting the ceramics building. They're going to be the main element that assaults the ceramics building. And while they're maneuvering, another Panzer Grenadier platoon will be providing Overwatch from the assembly area on the left. The reason why I'm choosing this platoon to maneuver is because it's the most complete platoon. The other platoon has significant losses. There's actually one section that only has 2 guys, so you always want to maneuver with your strongest platoons. I can just imagine the speech that someone like myself would be giving to these guys about why we're going to be assaulting this death trap, but I'm sure it would be filled with bullshit. I'm just not very enthusiastic about this mission. I really think that my company is going to get decimated. I guess I should mention that about 45 minutes into the mission, I should be getting another platoon. I think it's a Gebirjager platoon. Same guys that assaulted the airfield a few missions back. Now, those guys would be preferred in this situation. Because honestly, all of my vehicles are pretty much useless in this environment. I would rather have strong infantry rather than a mechanized force. Mechanized and armor does not function well in an urban environment. As we have seen, though, these sort of vehicles and these formations, they do excel in open combat, in conventional combat. But once you bring them into cities, they become a liability. Since you don't have these wide firing arcs that you would have in the countryside, their long range and fire control systems become pretty pointless. And the closer the enemy is to you, the less effective Blue 4 weapons tend to be. For instance, the Leopard tanks can spot main battle tanks at 3,000 plus meters, but they might not spot some farmer with an RPG 20 meters away. How I'm going to use my armor was something that I sort of struggled with, or something that I changed my mind on a few times. As you can see here, I was originally going to deploy them in a wedge, and I was just going to advance very slowly to the low-rise wall adjacent to the left side of this 4-story Overwatch position. And I was going to try to basically just trade blows with the Syrian ATGMs. But later on, I changed my mind, and I just send one tank out to draw their fire. We'll see how that goes in a moment. Also, at this point, I sort of forgot the risk of the ATGMs. And only after rereading the briefing, which I didn't record, I reread the briefing, and then I sort of changed my minds. So, what to do with my assault pioneers? One platoon is going to move down the center towards the ceramic building and is going to provide assistance to the other platoon that's going to be assaulting that building with their explosive charges. The other platoon was originally going to be held in reserve, but then I changed my mind and I'm going to attach them to the left flank. So I thought that the left flank didn't have enough infantry support. You can't really effectively attack unless you have one platoon overwatching and another platoon maneuvering. If you split your platoon into a maneuver and a base of fire element, then the chances of the maneuver element taking casualties is increased substantially. It's better to have at least one platoon in Overwatch if you're going to be attacking positions, so that's why I changed my mind. For the initial phase of this operation, the engineers are just going to be in Overwatch. They're not going to be assaulting. I want to get fire superiority before I do any maneuvering at all. So new tasking for the tanks, not moving them out as a formation. I'm just going to move one tank out, and that tank's job is to draw the fire from the ATGMs. This way, This way I can spot them and destroy them with artillery. It's not a safe job, but it's the only way I can spot the ATGMs. Otherwise, I can't use my vehicles the entire mission, because it won't be safe. So I have to take a risk. I have to expose some of my forces to harm in order to effectively use my entire force in the long run. And again, this building on the left flank, this high-rise white building, I'm very concerned about this building. I'm concerned about all the high-rise buildings that overlook the entire AO, because that's very likely to be the position of ATGMs or heavy machine guns. And since my vehicles are going to be in a pretty, ineffectual position to provide support fires, I need to do something about that, sooner rather than later. I also decided that in order to support the probing tank that's going to be trying to draw the ATGM fire, that I'm going to advance one of the sections of engineers. They're just going to hunker down by a low-rise wall and just try to help the tank spot the incoming ATGM rounds, which are inevitable. Right now, I'm just this one building here, all the way in the back. It's one of the tallest buildings. I'm going to be suppressing that. I'm also worried about that building. Now, I'm going to go ahead and move that reserve, which I originally planned to have in reserve. I'm going to move them to the left.
Feuer einstellen! Feuer einstellen!
And call me paranoid, but I'm going to go ahead and drop some ordnance on this white building on the left.
Feueranforderung empfangen. Ende.
It's just that I would be really surprised if there wasn't an ATGM there. And I don't feel like losing my tanks. And I apologize for this lengthy setup period, but it's what's required. This is a very intricate mission, and if I make mistakes, I'm going to lose a lot of my forces. Whenever I'm just floating around with the camera, I'm trying to conceptualize where I could be engaged from, trying to conceptualize potential threats that could be on the terrain, potential firing arcs that the enemy could have set up kill zones. Just about ready to go.
Inbound to attack. 30 seconds out. Dash 1 is in the pod. Roger. Clear pod.
This is sort of a snap decision right here. I was going to keep these engineers in reserve on the left flank, but at the last second I decided that I'm just going to have them join the assault onto the buildings. You should be safe running across the road. And the reason for that is that by the time they get to the road, the fire mission onto that large white building will be complete. The only real threats are from the building compound itself. And it's always good to have a reserve, but in this case, I don't have enough forces to have a reserve. And what I'm doing here is I'm just loading up these engineers on extra Panzerfaust and extra 5.56 because I know they're going to need it. I'm just expecting every one of these buildings to just be packed full of special forces. It said in the briefing that there was a battalion of special forces here, and they should be everywhere. I'm going to cease fires here on the building that I'm moving towards, because I don't want to hit my friendlies. And here we can see the smoke screen coming down.
Dash 2 is in the pod.
Inevitable happens. By luck, an ATGM has made contact with my probing Leopard tank and has destroyed it.
Feueranforderung. Kommandoauftrag beendet.
Sometimes the missiles miss, sometimes they hit. In this case, it was just bad luck. As soon as that Leopard goes down, an RPG team from across the way opens fire on the engineers that are moving to their overwatch positions. And my SOP, my ROE, for this mission is just to respond to even the smallest contact with extreme firepower. So I'm just going to go ahead and just level that building. And although I lost the tank, which is horrible, the crew survived. And another good thing is that I know that there is special forces in those buildings that I'm assaulting. So that's going to, as a precaution now, I'm going to level that entire compound as soon as the preparatory fire is complete.
Dash 1 is in the pod. Roger. Airtight.
I'm going to go ahead and cancel their assault orders. I'm not going to be moving into that. I'm not going to be moving towards that compound until I level it. The reason for that is that suppression is not too effective against these special forces guys. I can't just suppress it and then assault. It won't be enough. So I need to destroy the compounds and kill most of the defenders. And it might only be that one RPG team in there, but I can't take that risk. If there's 1 or 2 squads there, I might lose 4 or 5 guys in assaulting it. And now we see there's a command section in the same area as that RPG team. And now a firefighter. Spotted another ATGM. It's fired at the engineers that I moved up. Fortunately, the ATGM hit the rock wall.
Rushing from target.
In front of the engineers and didn't do much damage, just caused a few wounds. And in hindsight, that's what I should have done with the tank that advanced. Instead of moving it slow up to the rock wall, I should have raced it towards the rock wall and got into a hold down position. Well, they say hindsight's 20/20. Fire some Panther Faust into that building. One thing I did forget to do for most of my other squads is I forgot to give them extra ammo. And I also forgot to loot any Panther Faust that might have been in the IFVs. So I did do it with that one engineer platoon, but not any other squads. And now we spot from the buildings that I'm assaulting, we spot another RPG team, and this has confirmed my suspicions that there's a larger force there than merely 1 or 2 little teams. I'm going to suppress the contact long enough for the fire mission to come in and level the compounds. Spotting rounds for the fire mission have come in. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to change the order from target to target light. I'm And what that will do is it will tell the troops there to only use their guns and, you know, don't waste all their Panzerfaust. Just the one a few for the inner city or the inner factory area.
Verstanden, Wirkungsschießen.
Wirkungsschießen kommen.
Also going to suppress the other high-rise buildings in that area, the same area where that ATGM was that killed my tank, because there might be other ATGM teams there. Just as a precaution, you know, because I don't want to lose another tank. It's already, this mission is already pretty much a catastrophe, because I lost a tank. But just as a precaution to avoid anything else, I'm going to go ahead and suppress those buildings, even if it means wasting ordnance. And while that's occurring, the maneuver platoon on the right flank is going to advance to contact.
Abgefeuert. Kommen.
They are being overwatched by an OP on the far right flank where the platoon HQ is. They're also being overwatched by the platoon in the center. Believe it or not, I've seen special forces survive their entire building being blown apart by artillery and them clutching onto the debris.
Feuerauftrag beendet. Ende.
This may seem like a vulgar display of power, but I assure you it is not. This is very necessary. If I were to assault that compound without support fires from my vehicles, it would have been disastrous for my maneuver elements.
Abgefeuert. Kommen. Abgefeuert. Ende. Abgefeuert. Kommen.
Abgefeuert.
The idea here and the tactic is to pin down the enemy, fix the enemy, and then destroy him. It's a fundamental concept in warfare. You fix with fire, with suppressive fires, and you destroy with accurate fires. And under this saturation, I'm going to be advancing my maneuver element to contact. I want to take advantage of the smoke that's created by the howitzers as a form of concealment. Now these fires are dangerously close to my forces, but it's a risk I'm going to take. now that I've suppressed those ATGMs, try again. I'm going to move my tanks forward once again. The definition of insanity. Trying the same thing twice and expecting different results. Hopefully this time, if there are ATGMs that are still standing, they miss. If not, what can I do? There's nothing I can do. There is literally no alternative. The only alternative would be to assault the factory without vehicles aboard. And that's insane. And now I'm beginning with the initial plan to move this engineer platoon to assault the central compound. I'm pushing out the security elements a little bit closer and into forward overwatch positions. This time when I move my tanks forward, I'm going to move them quickly. Now to begin clearing the compound where those special forces were. I'm going to have one squad on the bottom floor, the other squad on the top floor, clearing at the same time. Now we've spotted a RPG team at regulars and a regular RPG team in the second ceramic building that is in front of the ceramic building that we intend to use as Overwatch. I'm going to go ahead and suppress that area with my mortars. So far so good. I haven't been engaged by any ATGMs, but what I do see that is troubling is that there's spotting rounds landing by my forces that are attacking the left flank. And that is, again, as I've said in other videos, a signal to me to move, and move quickly. Don't stay in the area where they're bringing down fires. Get out of the way, especially if they have good observers, because if the observer is skilled, he can actually direct and adjust fire onto you, and that's not fun for anyone. Well, it's fun for the Syrians, probably. Now that I'm suspecting that I may have killed the ATGMs, I'm going to move the tanks that are on my left flank up the road, and this will provide some opportunities for me to support my infantry there. It will also allow me to execute a more generalized assault on the factory compounds. Once the tanks are in position, your options are greatly expanded. Also considering now moving my mortars up a little bit. Oh! Incoming RPG. Not as bad as an ATGM, but still danger. It was an RPG-29 team, Special Forces, from a building about 450 meters away from my tank's limit of advance. And when that RPG opens fire, another Syrian squad in the building in front of it also opens fire. I'm going to suppress the contact and then destroy it with the tanks. The engineers that were providing a base of fire for the main assault onto the building compound are going to suppress the contacts. Meanwhile, I'm going to use the PZHs to destroy the contacts with assistance of the tanks. And again,
Feueranforderungen kommen!
this is quite a response to some small arms fire. I'm just destroying the buildings, but I have enough firepower to do so. There's no real penalty for me doing this. The only penalty could be that I waste my fires on some insignificant contacts rather than preserve them for when they're needed most. And the engineers that are covering the platoon that's in the buildings just spotted the contact inside the rubble of the buildings that I leveled. Probably some commandos in wait. So I'm going to go ahead and put some airburst ordnance on there. Now I notice over here on the right flank, I'm taking fire from the storage buildings here. There's another RPG-29 team. And checking the status of my section that was maneuvering, I see that they fired off a round and killed or incapacitated 2 of my troopers. And this is a continuing, problem when fighting the Syrians, is that the RPG-29 is so lethal that there's literally nothing I could have done to avoid that, other than maybe suppressing all of those buildings. But before this point, I didn't have the luxury to do so, because I wasn't sure if the area was clear. From ATGMs, that is. I'm also taking fire from the larger cement building. I'm just going to go ahead and level the first, the top level of the building there that's facing us. Right now, my maneuver element is in danger of being destroyed. They have 2 men down. Luckily, they're not dead. They are incapacitated. They will need medical assistance. I'm going to try to suppress that RPG team before it fires again and kills another 2 guys. And I'm going to call in a tornado to drop laser-guided ordnance on any elements that are visible.
Stand by for gas request. Roger, en route to ID.
Now, the enemy's coming out of the woodwork. There's a sniper team firing at me on the left from the maintenance buildings. And the maintenance compound is surrounded by its own separate wall that's separate from the factory proper. That's going to be real fun to try to secure. For now, I'm going to use the remaining ordnance in one of my mortar sections and try to suppress the contact. If I determine that there's a larger force there, I will destroy the contact with the howitzers. I'm not too worried about irregulars. There's no need to use the howitzers on irregulars unless there's a large concentration of them.
Feueranforderungen in Flanken, Ende.
Panzerfaust into those windows.
Abgefeuert. Kommen.
Abgefeuert. Ende.
Feueranforderung empfangen. Ende.
There's a lot of movement, contacts on the right flank. They're definitely doing something.
Achtung,
They may be
Aufschlag. Kommen.
maneuvering to attack me. I'm not sure, but there's definitely a lot of movement.
Abgefeuert. Ende.
Abgefeuert. Ende. Abgefeuert. Kommen. Abgefeuert.
Feueranforderung
Ende.
empfangen. Ende.
Achtung, Aufschlag. Kommen. Feueranforderung empfangen. Ende.
Aufschlag. Kommen.
Achtung, Aufschlag. Kommen. Aufschlag. Abgefeuert. Kommen.
Feuer. Feuer.
Aufschlag. Ende.
Schießen. Kommen. Wirkungsschießen. Kommen. Verstanden. Wirkungsschießen. Ende.
Feueranforderung empfangen. Ende.
I'm now going to assemble my martyrs.
Verstanden.
Aufschlag.
Wirkungsschießen.
Kommen.
Feeling
Ende.
confident enough about advancing them up that I'm just fairly certain that they don't have any ATGMs that can engage that area, otherwise they would have fired on the tanks. I'm also going to push my engineers up, move them closer to the center.
Aufschlag. Ende.
I'm
Abgefeuert.
tempted
Kommen.
to assault the central ground building
Abgefeuert.
at this
Ende.
time. It would also take some pressure off of the right flank.
Wirkungsschießen. Kommen. Abgefeuert. Kommen.
Verstanden.
Abgefeuert.
Wirkungsschießen.
Ende. Verstanden. Wirkungsschießen. Achtung, Aufschlag. Komm, Aufschlag. Ende.
This right here, what happens here is a man gets wounded from friendly artillery from
Kommen.
an airburst into the enemy. No, it didn't happen yet.
Wirkungsschießen. Kommen.
Yeah, see, what I'm doing right here, this was a very bad idea. I shouldn't be moving these guys up while this airburst is landing. There it is. That was a horrible mistake. I just, had two wounded in action from my own mortars. The reason why I did that is
30 seconds.
I was expecting the Syrians to just fire on me as soon as those rounds finished landing. I was expecting them to no longer be suppressed with the fire on my maneuver forces. So I just foolishly didn't wait long enough. And a lot of this game is military science. You have to understand the effect of weapons. And I'm not used to using 120 millimeter airburst ordnance. The 80 millimeter airburst ordnance only has a kill radius of like 25 meters. If those were 80 millimeter mortars, chances are I wouldn't have made that mistake. I'm not used to using the 120 mils in an airburst ordnance. There's a lot of motion coming out of the right flank after those rounds were landing, clobbering those buildings. They're maneuvering their forces. I'm going to try to kill as many as I possibly can while they're out in the open. Reason for this is they're obviously much harder to kill once they're in buildings. And they also pose a much greater threat to my forces. So after this fiasco, I'm just trying to deal with the casualties.
Inbound to attack. 30 seconds out.
Meanwhile, I'm beginning my assault on the ceramics building. I'm gonna go here and call in some airbursts.
Feueranforderung. Kommen.
Assyrian commando squad that is taking cover in the ruins of a storage building.
Dash 2 is in the pub.
We've spotted yet another ATGM. I'm gonna immediately suppress that ATGM with airburst fire mission.
Feueranforderung. Kommen.
Luckily, that ATGM is manned by irregulars.
Roger. Cleared hot.
It's not as likely to be as accurate. Nevertheless, it does pose a significant threat. It merits immediate suppression. The dreaded RPG 29 team strikes again, killing 2 more of my guys. I think from now on, I'm just going, when I see one of those things, I'm just going to hide. I'm just going to tell my forces to hide And then I'm just gonna wait for the arty to wipe him out because they are so deadly. They really are just absurdly deadly.
Feueranforderung empfangen. Ende.
Meanwhile, there's irregular forces running in and out of the compounds, in and out of the buildings. They're shifting from the rear to the buildings that are facing my forces. I'm going to try to maneuver the tanks forward to cut them off and to interdict them.
Abgefeuert, kommen!
Abgefeuert. Ende.
Feueranforderungen empfangen. Ende.
Well, the good thing about this is that most of the casualties from the RPG so far have not been KIA, they've been WIA.
Abgefeuert. Aufschlag.
But
Ende.
it still doesn't change the fact that in the upcoming missions, my platoons are going to be significantly reduced. And
Abgefeuert.
although they
Kommen.
don't die, they still get sent home,
Ende.
you know.
Achtung, Aufschlag,
Aufschlag.
kommen!
Ende.
Unfortunately, in this circumstance, there's no way for me to suppress those contacts because they're reverse slope of my vehicles. They're behind a wall.
Wirkungsschießen, kommen!
In an attempt to relieve some of the pressure, I'm going to be maneuvering forward my engineers.
Verstanden,
And we're going to
Wirkungsschießen.
finally try to secure that ground
Aufschlag,
building.
Ende.
Once we're in that building, we can more effectively attack the left and right flanks.
Wirkungsschießen. Kommen. Verstanden. Wirkungsschießen. Ende.
Artillery take any longer to get here. RPG man strikes again, killing another 2 guys. Mere moments before the airburst ordnance arrives.
Feueranforderungen, kommen!
And at this point, I just said, fuck it. I'm gonna kill these guys. So I'm going to call in some howitzers to do airburst. And that will definitely knock them out. I'm also going to call in another tornado to interdict enemy movements in that area. Unfortunately, the mortar fire mission that I called in there to strike those Syrians and the rebels ineffective. Coming out of the woodwork here, on the left flank is a large force of irregulars. They're getting lit up and suppressed by my Overwatch elements, but it does lead me to believe that the enemy is taking a more aggressive posture and maybe assaulting my positions. Or preparing to assault my positions. So, now I'm testing my new ROE out, which is to hide when there's an RPG team that cannot be suppressed.
Angefeuert, kommen!
Hide, you
Abgefeuert,
fools! Hide! You cannot defeat the RPG of Doom!
Inbound to attack. 30 seconds out.
Achtung, aufschlagen, kommen! Aufschlagen, Ende! Wirkungsschießen, kommen!
Haha! Die! The howitzers are landing on the Syrians that are in the rubble.
Dash 1 is in the pub. Roger. Cleared hot.
Meanwhile, that platoon on the right is down to about 50% strength. It's now time to take a more proactive role with the vehicles, even if it means risking them and exposing them to fire. It's now time to advance the martyrs up. Meanwhile, enemy movements in the factory complex continue to intensify because irregulars running from building to building and firing on my forces. General suppression is in order. It's now time for my engineers to get into the fight. They're going to breach into the compounds surrounding the maintenance buildings and flank the enemy from the side.
Inbound to attack. 30 seconds out.
Feuerauftrag beendet, Ende!
Dash 1 is in the pub. Roger. Cleared hot.
The engineers in the center have successfully advanced without meeting contact. And the engineers have breached into the compound on the left.
Aggressive for target. All ordnance fleet
And again, I question Hire's orders as to why I'm attacking this area if I'm destroying all of the buildings. What is the use?
Feueranforderung kommen.
What is the purpose of assaulting these compounds? All it's going to result in is me coming home with less men than I shipped out with. Although, if the German battle group was going to attack, or correction, if the German battle group was going to attempt to encircle Aleppo, they would probably need this area secured. They would need a complete control over the area surrounding the city.
Feueranforderung 20. Ende.
Abgefeuert. Kommen.
In this building we have an audio contact. This engineer section has detected an audio contact in the room adjacent to him. So what that section is going to do is just blow through the wall and assault the room. Meanwhile, the martyrs are advancing the contacts.
Aufschlag. Ende.
You're going to break into sections. You're going to act against
Wirkungsschießen
movement.
kommen.
Verstanden. Wirkungsschießen. Ende.
Here we have an unexpected unit opposing me. A CU-23 truck. I'm able to knock it out with my tank, but definitely does a number to the optics and subsystems of the vehicle. As a preparation for the engineers' advance on the left, I'm going to be shelling some of those buildings. And on the right, since I suspect that the Syrians on the right have been neutralized, I'm going to advance my platoon there to contact, even though that they're effectively down to about 60% strength. see here, a substantial amount of my fire support is now dry. Only 2 sections of PZHs are up and 1 section of mortars, all of which have zero ammunition levels. Now I'm going to assault the concrete building with my engineers in the center. The lead section of the right side platoon has reached Overwatch in the concrete building. Or correction, the cement building. I don't know why I was saying concrete. The cement building. He hasn't had any contact yet, which is, I suppose, a good thing. Meanwhile, it's now time to advance my vehicles. They've been in the rear for too long, and I want to start consolidating these isolated pockets of enemy resistance that are forming all around the city. The enemy is no longer in a position to to attack me offensively, but they still are a dangerous presence. They need to be cordoned and then destroyed.
Feueranforderungen im Flanken. Ende.
Contact. Inside the administrative buildings. We're fired upon by AK fire.
Abgefeuert.
In response, I'm going to go ahead and suppress all those buildings.
Abgefeuert. Ende.
At this point, I can't advance my tanks any further. You see here that I'm unable to access the inner compound of the maintenance complex because the hallway to do so has been pulverized by artillery. So I'm just going to bring these engineers down to the bottom level and bound across the open and go for one of the central buildings for Overwatch. And it's getting pretty obvious here, at least to me, that I need to reorganize my forces. I have sections that are operating without Overwatch, you know, borderline independently. I have sections that are running low on ammo, and the elements are getting mixed. Never a good thing. In the second part of this video, I'm going to reorganize all my forces into battle positions and finally prepare for the final phase of this operation, which is assaulting the factory complex. Right now, I'm just trying to get into Overwatch. Once the assault begins, I'm going to start clearing building by building and killing all enemy that I find.
Feuerauftrag beendet. Ende.
Nearly been established here in the central cement building. Or ceramics building. I don't know why I keep calling it cement. Got cement on the mind, apparently. Spot another ZU-23 truck. This truck is on the ASR on the other side of the factory compounds. I'm trying to knock it out with a Panzerfaust here. But unfortunately the target is reverse slope. So engaging it with the Panzerfaust is going to be ineffective. Then I try to engage it with mortars, but since the section isn't trained at forward observing, it's going to be pretty ineffective. Finally, I'm going to cancel that order and then call it in the next part of this video walkthrough. I'm going to call in the fire mission with the engineer command element that's in that sector. Anyway, I see you for the next part. 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 I see you for the next part.